biodiversity is not the same all across Earth. There are definitely some areas where we see larger biodiversity than others. If we're talking about biodiversity of plants and animals, we see the most biodiversity of these creatures in tropical areas, which are those central latitudes around Earth's equator. If we're talking about microbial diversity, so what's biodiversity of microbes that live underground especially, that is the greatest in temperate climates. And so it depends on where what kind of biodiversity you're looking at. But in general, tropical areas have the most biodiversity for large creatures and plants. And that's when you're comparing them to temperate and polar areas. There are a number of regions around Earth that we classify as biodiversity hotspots. These are regions that have at least 1,500 plants that you can only find in that area. And also, it's a hotspot if we're watching it because of habitat loss. So in this case, at least 70% of the habitat for that region has been lost. And so these areas are at risk. There are, you also, in order to be a hotspot, it has to be unique geographically, a separate area. And so it has to be something that's in that area, only those species live, and they are unique in the way that they interact. So the group that specifies what is a biodiverse hotspot is the group Conservation International. They have identified 34 hotspots around the Earth, and these are located in mostly tropical, but also some temperate regions. These hotspots, they really only cover a small part of Earth's surface at 2.3%, but they represent 50% of all plant species and 42% of all terrestrial vertebrate species. And so you're really concentrating a large amount of different species in small surface area. This map of Earth shows where these biodiversity hotspots exist, and you can see that they are spread over all of the continents except for Antarctica, and most of them are in the tropical regions near the equator, but you do see some that are out in the more temperate climates. So for example, the Chilean winter rainfall Valdivian forests, these are in a more temperate climate. The Atlantic forest is in a temperate climate. And the California floristic province, most of this is temperate. And actually I think all of it's temperate. So you can see New Zealand is a hot spot, and it's a more temperate climate. Also, it's important to note that only about 10% of these hotspot areas are protected as parks or preserves, and so we aren't able to really keep them as biodiversity hotspots. They can be developed because we're not preserving them.